Pretty good. Thank you everyone for attending today's Q&A. Thank one up to have 5 of the 9 members with us today. And there will be a section, I'll just quick disclaimer, there will be a section questions. Make sure we keep those questions respectful, non-discriminatory, and if they're political in nature, it's going to be related to like student policies. Student clubs. Nothing. Yeah. Very good. So thank you again for coming. My name is Riley. I will be moderating today's event. And to start off, we'll just go down this way and let each SRC member introduce themselves and what their priorities are as an SRC member, and to disclose if they are any groups.
Hi everyone, my name is Spencer. I am the chair of the Student Representative Council Board. And along with that, I have also quite a lot of and like a lot of kind of student representative style works inside the university. I'm on the university committee. So last year I was on the academic committee and also on the language requirements of the university. And then I also got a position on the artificial intelligence adoption steering committee, which is exactly as fun as it sounds. And then also a few other ones. And my priority as chair of the SRC is kind of to make sure that a lot of the kind of boring administrative affairs that kind of need to happen so that we can have a more public-facing board in the future, because there's kind of a few systemic issues that the SRC currently faces that haven't really been addressed, and my priority is on addressing those. We start trying to take on public-facing work.
Hi, well, I'm Kyle. I'm the SRC, but I'm also a socialist, so I'm a member of Socialist Alternative Griffith. Yeah, like I guess my project on the board is about creating a fighting body, a body that wants to fight for students' rights, but not only for like specific campus issues, but for the political issues that students care about. Like actually young people today overwhelmingly care about issues like the genocide in Gaza, like the increasing cost of living crisis and housing crisis. And want to fight. I think I want to direct students to fight and do something and actually change like the structural issues in society that cause all of these problems. So I guess what I want to do on the board is create a fighting body that influences students and tells students about protests, about what they can do to like fight and to struggle. But also not only like big political issues, but also the big political issues that affect students on campus. Stuff that happened last year. We actually made a campaign about within the SRC, but also on campus as a socialist club. And I just think actually we really need to take seriously politics as like a body. It's like I don't think we can separate out these things. Students face the brunt of the decisions of the major political parties. They face the brunt of the cost of living crisis as young people have stable jobs or like careers ready. So I think it's actually really important that we fight on our campus often.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm also a member of the Student Representative Council. I'm also the Science and National Relations Society president, Space Society. And I am also a member of the Labour Party, very proudly, party that has provided the most progressive social welfare ever in this country, in Australia, which is great to see, like Medicare and superannuation and whatnot. And it's that sort of stuff that I love to fight for. But on the SRC specifically, because it is a student body, we're really interested in like improving the university culture here, providing improving campus life for students, and that sort of stuff, and then just providing more like social benefit to students. So things like spending a lot of the staff money on the student pantry and a lot of those cost of living relief things, because obviously we are all students and we all face the brunt of the cost of living crisis. Yes. So yeah, it's important that SRC as a body kind of tries to help as much as possible.
Hi, I'm Lana. I'm at SRC. I just want to put it out. I'm a little bit sick today, so please just be patient. I am not affiliated at all with any sort of political party. Obviously, it is something that I do have a bit of interest in, but I have not gone and joined any sort of party really in my interest at the moment. I really just want to focus on all the students. I understand that we are here for the students on campus, and I want to really just look after the students here. Just give them a really good university experience. So what we've done here with the Revitalize is kind of bring more energy to the uni bar and stuff, and that's the kind of thing that I really want to focus on. I really don't believe that we should be pulling too much politics into the SRC. It's just not something that I believe is should, I don't know, be a part of us. We represent everybody across all political spectrums, and so I'm more focused on keeping a very neutral stance just so I can represent everybody.
Well, my name's Connor. I'm also a member of the Labour Party, again very proudly. And my sole focus on the SRC is, again, pretty much what Lauren and Olivia already talked about. I want the SRC to be very student focused on campus cost of living relief. And again, kind of excluding the political stances a little bit, not so much because I don't believe in them, also just because I think it's important to recognise that there are students on campus with very diverse political opinions. I just want to make sure we're representing all fairly and feeling because of SRC's stances. But yeah, that's all I've got to say about me.
Sweet as. No worries. Thank you all very much. And Olivia, Lana, and Connor are also members of the Revitalize group as well. So anyone who was here last year would have seen the advertisement and everything like that. So that's that as well. We'll start off with a generic question. This was submitted anonymously online. First year student would like to know what programs the SRC provides, what they cover, and where can they find students for the SRC. I will hand that question on to President Spencer.
I think that a lot of the time when we talk about services that the SRC provides, which is kind of the most foundational thing that people expect and should expect from a student organisation, they are talking about two kind of broad categories. The first is things that can support them in their studies, so that is like a lot of the work we do with study bases and the United Against Procrastination and a few different things like that, but then also just more broad things to support them living and them being young adults. And that is where things like our food pantry comes in, because the cost of living is impacting our age group very, very heavily. And we also kind of, beyond that, we also kind of are looking into a lot more kind of smaller projects that we will have, that we can see having a far greater impact moving into the future. Like, for example, at yesterday's meeting, we officially passed the first set of motions. Shout out to Olivia for actually putting it to the board. We are officially moving forward with providing universal period care products in every female bathroom across all campuses that we cover. I think that that is something that we should be very proud of, and it was a 5-minute discussion at the board meeting. That was only a 5-minute discussion because everyone agreed to it, and it is something that we should be very proud of. Handing over to Kyle.
If you guys have got anything else to add.
Just quickly, I think, the SRC obviously does provide a bunch of services. yeah, from my perspective particularly, it's like I think what we need to be focusing on as well is how we can have an outsized influence, not just with sort of the paltry student like money. But it's like that's what I mean. People I'm sure know what SAF is. It's students actually pay funds that fund not only the SRC but like the university takes a massive chunk of this. But I think focusing on actually like mobilising students to fight for their issues and other political issues is actually a way to obviously it's not really an investment. It doesn't cost very much to print some stuff to talk to students, have outreach, but it actually like being able to inspire students to have like an influence outside of like what services we can provide to actually inspire students and try and fight and lobby actually fight to have the government like support students more, fight, demand an end to the housing crisis and the cost of living crisis, and actually doing that on top of already all the services that the SRC provides.
I will also just note on that, on the SAF fees thing that you mentioned, all student organisations combined, so that's us and the Postgrad Association and the Gold Coast Guild and their Postgrad Association, combined we control less than 50% of SAF funds, which isn't great, but it's also very sad to note that compared to other universities, we're actually doing better than average.
Cool. Very good. And just a quick summary as well, I might ask the Revitalise Couch, what events do the SRC run? How do students register? And what events do you guys run? Which particular student section are you there?
Well, I guess I'll focus on, at least as of when we passed our Unibar motion, there have been a lot more events happening at the Unibar for all students who can come at night, which is just great for on-campus students. Is where it's kind of heavily targeted, because it's good to give on-campus students something to do at night when there are no classes on, and also a public space for them to drink, because we're young, we're young and silly, we all, or at least most of us, drink, and it's good to at least provide a safe space for them to do so, instead of just like in your bedroom, with your mates where anything can happen, even though it is, fine, but it's just safe. So there's been a lot more of those events running at night recently that have been run by the SRC. There was a trivia night that happened about a week or two ago. They got about 150 to 200 people there. And it targets everyone. And going forward, we are planning on doing more events, obviously, as often as possible, to keep people involved. There'll be live music and whatnot, but I guess shifting away from the Unibar, we are doing more things that kind of target, I guess, the cost of living and giving students skills. So we're thinking about doing like a mechanics sort of workshop to teach students how to change a car tire, or the basics of I guess how to fix a car, which I might actually have to go to because I know nothing. Which is good, because it's it can help get you out of a tight spot if you ever find that you've got a nail in your tire and your tire's flat, whatever, you need to change it. And you're a student, you might not know how, but going to those kind of workshops is a way to kind of build those skills, that sort of thing. We're planning on doing a lot more stuff like that, and we did get an offer to come up at the last board meeting, and we are going to start working with an organisation to roll out stuff like that, which is going to be great. Do you want to say?
We also have more social events as well that can be found on the SRC website, and that you can register through. Is it Eventbrite? I think it's either Eventbrite. Yeah. Oh, really? Campus groups. Oh, okay. I'm behind. But yeah, so that's a really great chance to meet new people and also just go hang out with your friends as well. I know last year I did go to the treetop ones and some other, I climbed the story bridge and stuff. It's a chance to get out there and try new things that you haven't done as well. And I think that's a really good thing that the SRC provides to students as well.
Cool. All good. And I'll just put a reminder out to the audience as well. If any questions pop up in your head, little flyer we get out when we walk in. There's a QR code in the bottom right-hand corner, I believe. Scan that, submit your question if you want to ask it out loud. I'll have it again. Well, you mentioned on-campus living with regards to Unibar and the events provided there. I've had a question submitted from a Fraser who is at BK College. Fraser was wondering, does the SRC have any intention of pushing Griffith to increase on-campus security, particularly regarding the lack of security cameras, especially in car park facilities and around the on-campus dormitories such as Elementary Kerr, which is home to a number of under 18s students? Is that something that the SRC is looking into or can look into advocating for students?
I'm just going to jump in on that one. I don't know if it's something we've discussed at a board meeting, but I know for a fact that it's something that I have discussed in meetings with the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Education and the other kind of student organisation leaders, because we have kind of student organisation executive catch-ups of myself, the leader of the guild, and a few staff members. And the Gold Coast Guild leader raised this issue, and then the DVCD kind of asked my perspective on it, and I effectively told him that, like, if the Gold Coast is having these issues, then you can 10x them to Nathan, because there is so many more dark places without street lights around here. You can walk to your car and you can spend 1.5 kilometres walking to your car, and 1 kilometre of that will be completely in the dark with nothing but your front porch. That should not be a thing. People should have a right to feel safe on their campuses. And I think a very large part of that is increasing security on campus. And I think that it is very important to make sure that people are also aware of the resources that are available, because on Nathan campus, if you are parked a really long distance away and you need to walk a really far way, you can call up the campus security and they can walk you to your car. And there's a lot of other resources like that. And I think that it's kind of as much about making sure people are aware of what is currently available, but it is also equally about making sure there is more things available in general. So the answer to the question is kind of yes, it's something that has been in the works, but I'm not sure if it's been something that's been in the works at a board level or just at an internal university level.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. Yeah, like Spencer said, I'm only new to the SRC as well, so I'm not too, I don't know much of the history of the board meetings. But at the board meetings we've been at, there's been not much talk of it, but it's definitely something I think it should be talked about actually now that you bring it up. And it's just not something that's really crossed our mind, but other than on campus as well. And I know firsthand how much lack of security there is. If someone walk around campus, you won't know if they're supposed to be there or not. And it's just there's no security there. I don't know what they're supposed to do about it. But yeah, I think it's definitely something we should talk about. My partner, she comes over and I always walk her back to her car at night time because it's it's very dark, and yeah, I can just see people who would have that can obviously be referred to the security guards pulling them back, but I think it's definitely something we can improve upon.
I will also just say that I think that it is also the type of issue that someone like me and like Connor won't really think about because we are tall men, and it is very difficult for us to kind of remember that there are a lot of people that don't look like us, and it is very important that we represent them and do what is best for them.
Then maybe I should step in and have a word about this, Spencer. Yeah, look, walking at night is scary, obviously. All women know this. And look, especially when it comes to the under 17s, I do know that there's a little bit of ambiguity about surveillance of them, which we would want to be very conscious of. But at the end of the day, if students feel unsafe in a lot of areas on campus, then that is a huge concern to us, and that is absolutely something that we would be very interested in addressing. If there are giant gaps in the surveillance where, you know, walking back to your car at night, that is a problem that should be addressed immediately in my mind, and is something that I would be quite happy to pass or to create a motion on and pass at the next board meeting if it got support from the others, because it's just straight up unsafe for women, and it's terrifying actually. I've had very many times where I've finished a late class and I've had to walk back to my car in the dark, and it is unsettling. Especially since it's in a forest. I mean, as beautiful as a forest is, oh god, I don't want to know. So, like, I think, yeah, it would be, now that you mention it, it's a big issue, and it will 100% be on at least Revitalise's radar to have a look at increasing some of the security around those car park areas to create a little more safety on campus.
Cool, thank you very much. I hope that answers Rachel's question. We will circle back now. We've had a submission regarding the events question. You've mentioned events for students on campus and the younger student demographic. Are there any events for online students or more tailored towards mature age students that go to campus? You might see Kyle go that one.
We don't actually have much to say about that.
Not much to say.
So the kind of short answer to it is that we are trying to move to a model where online students can access current events, and that should kind of be self-explanatory. Why? Because at the end of the day, they are paying they're paying staff fees, and if we have a system where online students can't access the services that they're actively paying for, then they're being ripped off, and that needs to be solved. That is an issue that needs to be focused on and worked on. And so far, most of the kind of changes that we are looking at for online students focus more on creating ways that online students can access existing events rather than creating online specific events. But I also, just to be completely honest, I also think that there needs to be more online specific events that are hosted, because we as the student organisation representing a lot of online students, because it's one of the biggest campuses now, we need to kind of give a proper value proposition to those students. Otherwise, as I mentioned before, they're not getting value for their money, and it's kind of about how can we give them value for their money even though they won't actively participate in events and they can't access the catering. And one of the ideas I floated at the end of last year, and I'd be interested to see, this might be something for discussion later in the year at board meetings, but seeing if we can do anything to provide like JP Hi-Fi gift cards to online students so they can make sure they have headphones that they can use for class. Because at the end of the day, those are resources that are more specific to the needs of online students, and it kind of makes sense that we cater to the needs of all different types of students, including online students.
Cool. Thank you. We'll have one more question on the theme of events, and then we'll move on to some other topics. But we've had another anonymous submission from the audience. It reads, I realise that movie nights, day trips and other fun events haven't been happening as often as the past couple of trimesters. Are there going to be any new events happening soon? So, does anyone have anything to share regarding that?
Is that just in general from Griffith Uni or from the SRC in specifically?
The SRC.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Look, we would definitely be keen to do more. I know that during trimester 3 there were a lot of day trips out to like Byron Bay and Dreamworld and whatnot, and there were a lot of those ones which were quite good. I don't believe that those have been taken off of the usual roster for events, Spencer. I don't believe. So it should be something that we should still be intending to do. Yeah, I wouldn't see any reason why that would stop. I don't think anyone's passed any sort of motions to reduce the amount of events that we are running. So I would expect to see that those should keep coming.
If I had to guess, I would also say that the volume of events that we currently have may also come down in some way to current SRC staffing limitations, but that is an entirely separate issue in itself.
Oh, but just one thing I'd like to add is that if there is a gap in the sort of event styles that you would like, that are not being run by the SLC, but you would like to see, I'd encourage you to look at clubs as well. Tons of clubs run events. You know, my club runs events just about every fortnight. So if there are any, if you want to go to a movie night or something like that, obviously the SRC does our best to run as much as possible, especially in staffing limitations, but clubs are also an excellent secondary option there.
Cool. Thank you very much. We will now move on to some areas regarding the student political sphere. This is a bit, I've got a question. Today, the Griffith SRC posted on your Instagram condemning the arrests of the two activists in Queensland over a week or two ago, or whenever that occurred. But we've had panellists talking regarding that we should keep politics separate from the SRC. So I suppose the question is, what's the process there as to what goes on the social media? Does it have to be unanimous when you're posting a condemning statement like that? And how does that all work internally?
I'll field this one because I submitted the motion about condemning the arrests. So the way it works is like a board member can take a motion to the council and it has to get like a majority to pass. But the one thing with that motion and with previous political motions, like myself and Corey, who isn't here, ran as a ticket, like as a socialist to the board, not last year, but the year before, on an explicitly political basis. So we wanted to argue that like we want to get students involved in politics, in campaigning for the issues that they care about. And the biggest issue, which was our number one campaigning point, was in supporting Palestine. And so the motion that actually it did pass unanimously on the board at yesterday's board meeting, that we should condemn the arrests of two pro-Palestine activists for the words that they had said under the new LNP's pretty draconian hate speech laws, where they've outlawed pro-Palestine phrases, accusing, like, or labelling them as anti-Semitic. These are slogans that call for freedom and justice for Palestinians, something that doesn't exist right now. And I think it's really important that as a board we could come together and stand against those laws, call for them to be repealed and call for the activists arrested to be not charged under those. I think importantly though is like, yeah, on Connor and Lana's point about not being political, like Revitalise did run on a platform of not including politics in the union, and I think it reflects something about the politics of like Labor student members of the Labor Party, that they are kind of unwilling in a way to challenge the status quo, to challenge the Labor government that is in power federally and at the state level on issues such as Palestine. Like actually at the board meeting before last, I brought a motion just as the laws were passed that to say that we should condemn these laws, call for them to be repealed. And that motion did not pass because Revitalise did not support criticising the government, the Liberal National government that's actually in right now, on that basis. So I guess that's a bit of a reflection into the process that goes in towards posting about like political issues on the board, and like partly where these have come from and who supports it or doesn't support them.
Yeah. And then on that point, I'd just like to clarify something with the Revitalise couch. So when we did the intro, as you mentioned in passing, like not really politically focused, but then you agreed unanimously to support a motion condemning sitting government. How is that? How do you sort of figure what you consider political and what you don't include in that?
Yeah, I can take that one. So obviously our focus is primarily keep politics out of the SRC, and as Carl said, the meeting prior, he wanted to make a statement condemning the laws that have just been brought in, which we voted against just because, well, obviously it's not really aligned with our agenda with keeping politics out of the SRC. The reason we agreed though to vote unanimously on our last statement we put out, I think it was posted today, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, it was posted today. It's because this is something that like directly, like this has affected students on, was it UQ students, I think it was? UQ students, and I think it's something that we didn't hear any like feedback on, like opposition to the statement. So I think if all students are interested in that and that's how they want to be represented, then it's definitely our job to, regardless of if we, think it's right or wrong, if it's, if overwhelming student support wants to do that, then obviously we can listen to that students' interested first.
Yeah, cool. And
On this topic, once again, I am independent. I am very, very proud of the fact that I was elected as chair of the Student Representative Council, not necessarily because of any political agenda that I have, and more because a board of my peers could see that I was in the correct position to be a very effective board leader, and I'm still very proud of the fact that that vote was 7 in favour, 0 against, and 2 abstentions. Like basically unanimous decision to elect me as chairman. I'm very, very proud of that. And in saying all this stuff about kind of my status as politically independent, I think it's also incredibly important to acknowledge that if you look historically, student activism it played a very significant role in pulling Australia out of the Vietnam War, for example. And I think that advocating for students' interests doesn't mean staying politically neutral. It means advocating for the political causes that are in students' interests. And sometimes that means that it's better to not release a statement and just kind of let everyone kind of agree. And like sometimes it's good to not release statements so that you can kind of have more unifying times, but then other times it's also very important where necessary you can actually release hard statements taking stances. And there have been times where the SRC's had to turn comment sections off for some of the statements that we've released. But that in no way means that we are in any way walking back those statements. The SRC board still is completely, it's still completely unified in, for example, our thoughts on transgender rights. But we had to turn our comment section off because there was a lot of negative comments on that. But at the same time, it's still a stance that we proudly take. And I think walking that line between knowing when to speak out about something versus when to avoid it is a very important distinction. And also, I think that finding that line in a lot of ways kind of is where a lot more of the organised student politics comes into the picture.
cool. Thank you. And then
Sorry, guys, also just to be clear on this.
Well, obviously this is like a issue I care a lot about. I brought a lot of motions about Palestine to the board throughout last year, and I think it is just really important that actually, I don't think it's just about like representing students in a neutral way. I don't actually think it's about that at all. I think we were all elected, whether we say it or not, on a political basis. I was elected on an explicitly left-wing political basis. And I think it's really important. I think it's important that institutions like student unions stand on the right side of history, stand against a genocide that is currently going on in Gaza, and a genocide that, as well, which is really relevant for us here, that the federal government and every single state government, the Labor and Liberal parties of this country, support. So I think it's crucial that actually, the SRC does take stands, not only when it's politically viable, not only when it's popular, but when it's right. I think that's really important. And I think it reflects something about the political positions of different people on this board that, for the past year of our time on this board, Corey and myself as socialists have consistently brought motions about Palestine, argued for them, fought for them, and that other members of this board, when it does not seem politically expedient, when, for example, the Labor Party was still not in opposition to the hate speech laws that the LNP put through, members of this board were not willing to oppose them. But then, when it does seem politically expedient, when the Labor Party on a state level feels as though they have to oppose these laws because they are so incredibly unpopular, because they are so incredibly draconian and right-wing, the members of this board feel that now is the time that they can support these things.
Thank you. And I've just got a quick follow-up on that. We'll just keep these answers brief to this question. A lot of you reference how you'll support motions that are explicitly supported by students, or to your understanding supported by students. There's still a lot of public polling surrounding certain things that students may support or oppose that the SRC doesn't mention. And I suppose that's my question is, how do you determine what is supported by a vast majority of the student body? Is it just a vibes thing? Like, how do you determine that? And then how do you differentiate that between politics and student matters?
It's difficult, right? Because you kind of have to, it might be something for us to investigate, to do a mass poll out to feel the vibes of students' political opinion on campus, because that is important to us, and whatever the general political opinion of the students is the opinion that we will reflect. But mostly it comes from just interacting from students on campus. Obviously, a lot of us, these two live on campus. I am on campus almost every single day that I'm not at work. So I think it comes to being on campus as often as possible and engaging with the students here as actively as possible kind of allows you to gauge that sort of political opinion. And at the end of the day, if students ever do raise, political issues that they feel is very important for us to talk about, then we will talk about them and we will discuss them. And we're not about to shy away from those conversations, but if there was ever anything that was submitted to us, then we do take that seriously and we do have a conversation about it.
And just to add on to that as well, it's not that we don't personally oppose the statements that the socialist group has been putting to the board. It's more so we just don't think it represents every student. Like, I've had a handful of Jewish students come up to me and they felt alienated that we're doing all these political posts, and they feel a little bit of hostility. So it's not that I agree with them politically, but it's also, I think it's our job as the SRC to represent all students and not make any student feel alienated because of that political position.
Yeah, well, I think students in Gaza feel alienated. I think that every single university in Gaza has been destroyed by the Israeli state, by this genocidal war that they have enacted on a civilian population. So, yeah, actually, I think if students, well, one thing, I think actually the Palestine movement is an anti-racist movement. It's a movement that stands against anti-Semitism in all its forms and against every racism, like the racist apartheid the Palestinians have to deal with every single day. And I think it's really important that actually, yeah, for me, this question's a bit null and void because I actually don't really care what the most right-wing of students think on this campus. I think we need to stand up for left-wing issues, for issues that place us on the right side of history, like what we've done in the last year with the board. We're in supporting trans rights, in supporting abortion as healthcare, in supporting the right for people to have housing, even on our own campus, and opposing the horrific conditions that the university has in its student accommodation, and yeah, in supporting Palestine, because I think that is the key moral question for a generation of people, especially students who are still on the front lines of this movement.
Cool.
Is it okay?
Just quickly, yeah.
What I believe as along with this statement is that we need to make sure that our focus as the student representative board is to focus on the students at Griffith University. These are things that we do need to support, but our main focus here is making sure that the students here, they all feel included, that they don't get any sort of discrimination, racism, or anything towards them as a result of our posts. And we need to make sure that everyone here feels welcome to our campus and that they want to be present at Griffith. What I believe is that we should remain a state of neutrality just because we have a really like large range of students here, and we can't like have anyone feel left out because of something that we put out there. And like, even though this is something that we should support, we represent everyone on campus, no matter what their political stances are. And like, there are clubs that can support these things. Like, there's the Students for Palestine and the socialist clubs here that can support these things freely as much as they want. But we represent all students here, and we can't just exclude like right-wing students just because like we don't believe in what they stand for. Like, we need everyone to feel welcome here, and that is just like what we should be doing as a student representative board. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
And then just before we finish up on the student politics side of things, I'm going to open it up to the floor. If you will just take one or two questions, raise your hand if you've got any questions, but just remember, non-discriminatory, respectful questions, and if it's, well, it is going to be political in nature, student politics, not personal things that students here may believe. So I know Emma has a question, so we'll start with Emma, and then we'll just get a couple more before Carl takes off.
So I'm Emma, by the way. I'm from the student magazine Graffiti. But a lot of your kind of polling points is just coming from people that you guys specifically talk to. How is the SRC going to better poll students who actually know what students are thinking? Because it's so clear from each of your answers there is missing data points that would be very valuable when you're actually deciding whether you make these statements or not. So that's my question. What are you guys going to do to better poll students and get their feedback?
Yeah, it's definitely a valid point. I think we talked about literally last board meeting, Holly, what was the issue she was talking about surveying on?
There was an issue that we were going to survey on. I don't remember.
I can't remember off by heart, but there was a certain issue I think we disagreed on the board, and Holly, who's the secretary of the board, she said she's going to do some public surveying around campus, so we'll just see like what the consensus for that is, and yeah, hopefully that's something we can maybe do more regularly to get some, I guess, more credible points.
More like Google form or campus groups forms.
Yeah, I think so.
And then using social media to maybe try and target different groups on campus.
Yeah, definitely open to that. It's not a bad idea.
People can also directly contact the SRC as well. We've had a few people contact us through the Instagram, I think. They just DM'd us, and that's how we were brought to attention that some people were obviously feeling a certain way about some issues, and then that led to more discussion along the board as well. And so I think we keep a lot of avenues open for discussion. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, definitely open to more like discussions throughout the uni as well, like polls and I don't know, just ways of people bringing up issues and bringing up things that they want mentioned and talked about. I'm definitely open to that, and I would love to definitely bring up something.
Will that be like a motion you guys pass at your next board meeting then?
I will kind of just expand on this. At the most recent meeting, so yesterday, we actually passed motions to commission a report into ways that the SRC can kind of update and review some of the kind of core structures. And part of that was establishing like clear, I refer to them in the motion as clear information pipelines in and out of the SRC. So in terms of internal university workings, what that would look like is going to a lot of university committees and seeing if we can get meeting minutes from all the different committees, and then we can actually see what's happening in the university while it happens, or before it happens, so we can hopefully start being proactive rather than reactive. But at the same time, that also, that same kind of information pipeline is hopefully where we will be able to bring things like complaints in, we'll hopefully able to bring like opinion polling in, and kind of creating a situation where the SRC isn't running blind, like we're running with data and information rather than on vibes.
I'll just really quickly add to that, like one piece of data that we have about like the student population and our work in the last few years is that at the end of last year, one of the staff members, the one who manages the social media, let us know that actually our posts supporting Palestine protests, making statements of a political nature and concern to Palestine are actually the most popular Instagram posts that we had made that entire year. And I think that's not the only thing. It's like, well, one thing, when me and Corey were elected, we campaigned on this basis. We on this explicit basis, we got the most votes of any other group on the board. And as well, I mean, in my personal capacity, like I'm a socialist, I'm sure plenty of you have seen me standing in the middle of campus heart, talking to people about politics, convincing them to come to protests and stuff. In that capacity, I think I've talked to a wide range of students. And it's quite common, very, very common, in polling federally and stuff like of just the population of Australia that people support Palestine want an end to the genocide.
Cool. We'll go. How you going, Kyle? Do you have to take off? Or
One more political question.
right, yeah, we can go one more. Behind Emma, you had your head up first, so we'll go to you, and then we can move on to others.
So I was just gonna ask, because I heard you say the stance about trans rights. I was wondering, in regards to the Labour Party, I think late last year, I forgot exactly what time, there was that rollback on people being able to be admitted to the gender clinic. And then in WA, it was entirely banned for anyone to access it. I was wondering like what the distinction is there for like, oh, we speak up about this, we don't speak up about that. Because the thing is, for that example, there's a lot of trans students at Griffith, and that directly affects them without any kind of like in between. It's not here or there, it does affect their healthcare and their lives. So I was wondering about the distinction of that. I was also wondering about the distinction of if we're accepting discrimination at all. Like if it's, because if you're saying that like, you know, we're giving to a culture around, which is fair enough, but isn't it to a certain level almost accepting far right stances? Because far right doesn't just mean far right, it usually means sexism, transphobia, homophobia, racism as a primary one. So I think it's important. I was wondering what your stance are on like, oh, we can accept this, or like, no, this is actually harmful, and directly hurts people at Griffith.
Just going to answer that question, can we try and we're running a bit short on time, so just keep the answers as concise as possible. Obviously answer the question in its entirety, but just as concise as possible.
So obviously, no, we will never condone any discrimination against trans students. That is horrific, that is terrible. Trans students have just as much of a right to be here on campus as any other student does, and we welcome them with open arms. Changes that were made last year to students being able to accept gender-affirming care, they are terrible, they are horrific, they are laws passed in Queensland by the Queensland State Government, which is now run by Deb Kusapuli and his Liberal National Party. So, at least here in the Labor Party, amongst the young people in the Labor Party, it is a very, very firm stance that we stand with trans kids and just all trans people, you know, never accepting any sort of discrimination. There are dinosaurs, there are old people that do have their political opinions, and at the end of the day, it is hard. Dinosaurs are everywhere. They're in, you know, they're in every single facet of life. But we are the next generation. We are young, and honestly, if anyone within, you know, the student body, Revitalised or Labor came out and said that they didn't support trans kids, they would be purged. They would not be allowed to be anywhere near any of this because then that means that their political opinions does not uphold a safe space at Griffith Uni. And I think all of us can agree that if there was a transphobe on the board, that would be a very sad day for all of us.
I just want to quickly add one more thing that I forgot to say. Also, I was wondering in relation to Palestine and how that works. So there's also Palestinians at Griffith, like that there is at least that's just gonna happen with a campus of 3,000 people. So I was wondering how that goes into it. And I just generally meant not outwardly being like, oh, it's okay to be transphobic. I don't mean that. I mean more like neutrality. Where do we accept being like, oh yeah, people have different perspectives? Because yeah, like you said, you can't really change someone's perspective necessarily. And it is important to interact with people with different mindsets, especially if you do want them to believe the same things. If you want them to support the things that you do, you have to engage with them. But I was just wondering about that stance of neutrality, because while every student is allowed to have an opinion, some opinions harm people more than others.
I completely agree, and I guess that my thought process on a lot of this is kind of, when you're standing on the railroad tracks, you need to pick a side or you get by the train, right? Like, neutrality is complicity in a lot of these cases. And I guess the kind of framework that I view a lot of this stuff under is less, is it going to be the quote unquote popular decision, and more, is it the right decision? Like, for example, on the transgender rights issue, what we really look at is releasing a statement, basically make it very clear that trans people are welcome in our community and are recognised. Having that kind of statement and publishing it, there will be people that feel quote unquote negatively impacted by it, but the negative impact is them seeing a social media post they disagree with, where the positive impact on the other side of it is trans people being able to look at their main student representative organisation and going, oh, they actually think I'm a human. That's a far greater impact for that person than any even theoretically negative impact that could come from someone disagreeing with a social media post. And I think it's very important to make that distinction. And I think that in a lot of ways, to put it bluntly, I think that, not to be overly critical, but I think that a lot of people in Revitalise need to recognise that you won the most recent SRC election in an absolute landslide. You need to be able to have the confidence to go forward and say, we are representing students and we are going to do the best we can, and we are going to make sure that everyone is heard, rather than just saying that might not line up with this specific demographic. You need to be ambitious. That's what student organisations should be for. But on the other side of it, I also think that kind of critiquing Kyle on the other side of it is there also needs to be a time and place to recognise that you really do need to recognise sometimes that there's a time and place for these things. You can't constantly be fighting these ideological battles every single day, because a lot of people don't want to be in the trenches every day. There's a lot of people that do, and more power to them. I consider myself one of them, but it's just difficult when it's kind of being forced on people rather than them choosing to engage with it.
Yeah, I'll reply to that. Like, I think it's actually really important that we're in the trenches every day fighting for an end to the genocide in Gaza, well, for one, but also an end to inequality for students, inequality for everyone around the world, and end to sexism and racism and transphobia and stuff like that. So I do think I don't think we can pick and choose when we fight for these things. I don't think we should. I think we should fight for them all the time, because you know what, actually the right is fighting for these things. Like, it was the socialists on the board that moved a motion supporting trans kids when the LNP put a ban on puberty blockers at the start of their term, like the start of last year. And we'll stand firm with that, like, not only some of the time, all of the time. And I think to the second part of your question, it's like, we actually, I don't think you can take neutral stances on these things. Like, what does it mean to be neutral during genocide, when like over 70,000 people have been murdered, with the support of most if not all, of the Western world. So I think, yeah, we can't stand neutral on that at any time or any place. We have to be opposed to that 100% of the time.
I will say this is also
One final
coming,
response.
this is also coming from someone who abstains a lot of emotions about Kyle's report, not Kyle's, Spencer's report. It is important to always vote motions up or down. I believe abstaining is cowardly because it's not choosing
I think
a side.
it's cowardly to vote against the motion that would oppose the criminalisation of two pro-Palestine phrases. You guys voted against.
We voted for.
You voted for this one, you did not. You voted against when I brought it to the SRC a month ago. And actually, yeah, it's good that you voted against it now, or voted for it now. But I think actually, well, you know, sure, I like it's a little petty kick to me that I abstain on things. I abstain on things that I don't think are incredibly important. I think it's important, incredibly important, to take a side on political issues, which I don't think you guys think so.
My response to that as well is another thing about being politically neutral. I also, another reason why we kind of oppose a lot of things Carl brings up is we think it's a little bit cherry picking issues as well. Like obviously there's a huge genocide in Gaza, it's horrible, and none of us agree with it. I think we're all pro-Palestinian on the board. But there's also like a genocide in Myanmar that hasn't been brought to anyone's attention. There's wars all over the world that we haven't touched on. So it's like, when do we, like, how do we choose what issues are important to talk about and like exclude the others? Like, there's a lot of other issues in the world that we haven't touched on.
There's a lot of issues in the world that the Labour Party supports, like the genocide in Gaza. I think that's when you guys can pick and choose, when the party that you're a part of actually gives material support to the state of Israel.
What about Lana, who's politically not fitted?
That's that you were in the Labour Party.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we agree with everything the party does.
When I have a quick question just to kind of de-escalate the situation, but a lot of your meeting minutes from your board meetings have not actually been on there, so we can't actually see what you guys vote for at the meetings. What are you guys going to do to make sure that everyone in this room
I've got that
can
answer for you.
see?
That was a technical error. Holly has posted all the minutes. I think she posted it yesterday or today. So you should be able to view all the minutes as of to yesterday's meeting, and then that one should be posted within like a few weeks, I think. But you were able to view it now, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Very
I
good.
saw them this morning, so.
Cool. Kyle's got it on now.
Sorry.
So, round of applause. Thank you, Kyle, for attending. And share what you have to share with the students. Thank you very much. We will crack on now. We'll move away from the politics stuff. I know there's keen people with questions out there. We will have time at the end where there'll be food, where you can ask questions personally, non-confrontationally, respectfully. We will have time at the end where we can circle back if we need, but for now we'll move on. So I want to talk about some of the SRC's strategy. So just for a bit of context for everyone in the room, the SRC has a strategic plan for 2025 to 2027. They've got up on their website as a PDF document. So we just have a couple of submissions regarding said strategic plan. The first one, objective 1.3, says that the board will prioritise one systemic advocacy issue per year. What is that issue this year and how we advocate for it?
Well, I guess it kind of comes down to what you define as systemic advocacy, because there's a lot of different ways you can interpret that. But to me, when we talk about systemic advocacy, what we're really talking about is empowerment of students and student organisations within their given context. So, as I mentioned a little bit previously, I recently, last meeting, we just commissioned a report that will effectively cover all of the, basically getting staff to review all the different things that the SRC kind of does and all the different structures, and then kind of coming back and recommending how we can update the actual way the SRC will work. And in a lot of ways, none of the things that are in that report will be particularly sexy. There won't be sexy changes and they won't be particularly interesting, but they will be incredibly important moving forward. So we're looking at things like making sure there's like an actual structure on how meetings are run and an actual operational procedure for how meetings are conducted, and making sure we actually conduct, or making sure we have an actual rigorous process for registers of interest and conflicts of interest, all of which are very, very important, and additionally are kind of all part of a larger issue where it is very clear that the SRC is moving towards a system where it is going to be far more like kind of organised party based, and the SRC isn't really built for that at the moment. And that is in some ways not necessarily, and in some ways that's not necessarily the fault of any individual player, but it does mean that it needs to be addressed in order for us to actually have a functional SRC moving forward. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on. And yeah.
So just on that objective explicitly, like, is there a single issue that is being prioritised for this year? Has that not been decided yet?
So
will that happen? And if so,
I'm also new to the board, so my experience isn't expansive. But I will say that in terms of systemic advocacy, it's probably definitely almost always the issue of Palestine, because that is the issue that is most commonly brought up by the other two board members, and is an issue that obviously we are all pro-Palestine. No one supports the genocide. It's genocide. So it's probably definitely the issue that has been focused on for the last few years, as it is important to very many students and is important to us. And yeah, so whether that is an issue that we want to continue laser focusing on, it changes within every board meeting. You know, sometimes there is attention brought to other issues like feminine hygiene on Griffith Uni campus. I think that's a huge issue that was not universal, and that is something that I am very passionate about advocating for, because I'm a huge women's rights activist. And I definitely love to see more attention on issues like that in the future, for sure.
okay, cool. To stick to the strategic plan, objective 4.3, I'll read it out for the audience, but objective 4.3 reads, quote, to develop and support subcommittees representing each campus and specific student cohorts, but not limited to international, First Nations, LGBTIQ+ student issues per year, based on student feedback. So there's a couple of problems to this question. Question one is regarding how do you collect that student feedback? And question two is, do those subcommittees exist yet, or will they exist shortly? So yeah, if anyone's got a response on this.
Put bluntly, the subcommittees do not exist, and in some ways that is a major issue, but in other ways you can point towards the fact that the SRC has been restructured from a board that had a lot more specific roles and a lot more of an ability to make those kind of groupings, to now a system where it is only 9 people and it's a lot harder to actually find the numbers and the time to focus on those topics. And that's not to say that it isn't important, but currently what we are looking at is we are considering making a subcommittee for an end of year event that we're planning, and then beyond that there is discussions about a second subcommittee that I've been working on since sometime last year, which will focus on reviewing university policy and be open to everyone, staff and student. And the goal of that is kind of to make sure that we can give a voice on university policy directly to the university. And on collecting the feedback, it's something that we have struggled with a lot. We're getting better at it, but it is certainly an ongoing issue because, put bluntly, when you have a student engagement problem and you try to ask people how to improve student engagement, they don't engage in how to tell you to do better. So you don't know how to get them to engage, to give you feedback on how you can get them to engage better. And it's just a vicious cycle. And that's why a lot of the kind of structures need to be fixed before we can kind of get down to those issues.
Which is why those subcommittees will be a big part, I'm hoping, of the report that Spencer ends up presenting to the board in May.
Cool, very good. And then we've also had a submission online as well that sort of relates to that objective. There's reference to subcommittees representing each campus as well. And we've had a submission from a young student who reckons they haven't seen as much of the SRC on their South Bank campuses. Is that a priority for the SRC to try and represent the 3 South Bank campuses better? And if so, how are you planning to do that?
It is an issue, and I think to give everyone a bit of context, originally the SRC had members, like in the Constitution, had members from every single campus that we represent, and there was all of these different roles and all of these different things. But what we quickly found out is that when you have this board of like 18 students and you need 12 to hit quorum, which is the minimum number for a meeting to go ahead, and everyone is spread out all across Brisbane, it's very hard to actually get that many people in a room together. So quite often the issue was that there was so many people doing different things that there wasn't actually enough people to host the meeting, which is why we cut back to a group of 9. Which is where the board is at currently, and then that kind of leads into the whole thing about the report that we've mentioned. But getting more South Bank involvement, I feel like, is a critical point. Last year, we had a casual board vacancy filled by a South Bank student, and it was very interesting, and I think a lot of student representatives got a lot out of that, because when nearly all of us are looking at the same campus every single day, we will bring to meetings issues from that campus. So it's very important that we get a wider array of students to be able to get more feedback and solve more issues fundamentally.
Cool, very good. We'll hit one more objective and then we've got an online question and then we'll try and wrap it up, so maybe another 5-10. Objective 3.1 states that the SRC will seek to support students through the development of 2 external partnerships. What does that mean, and who are some potential partners that the SRC would consider if that's happened? That's all
Spence will probably know more about it than I do. I'm still relatively new in finding my bearings. But I know a potential partnership, or I guess opportunity that came up at the last meeting was there was a, what was it? It was like a
Cooper's Plains
Cooper's Plains Autobahn who approached us, and they pretty much was just looking for SRC to advertise them in return for $50 vouchers for all students at, to get a car service and like cinemas and stuff like that. So that's definitely something we've been looking into. I'm not sure if that fall under like the key partnerships. That's will actually correct me on that.
Yeah, I think that to me, kind of the other big external partnership that I've hoped to actually, and I hope this project actually comes to fruition, but something that I've been working on a little bit with someone who was filling casual SRC vacancy last year and is now the founder and president of the Environmental Society, is getting the RSPCA or the Brisbane Area Animal Network involved in a project where we effectively get a bunch of kind of possum boxes fabricated, and then we can either invite different clubs and different community members in to paint their possum box and either put them somewhere around campus, or if we have a high enough volume, bring them home and put them somewhere else in the neighbourhood. Because I think that even if not everyone is a member of the Environmental Society or really focuses on it on an everyday basis, I think that something like getting people around to paint a possum box with the rest of their club, and they can hang it in a tree and people can look back at it in 5 years and remember those club members. I think that is the type of project that everyone across the university can really come together and work on, and I hope that project actually turns into something.
Cool, very good. One last question to wrap up the formal component. This question was submitted from a member of the audience, I believe, anonymously. The question is a pretty simple yes or no question, so answer's not too long. Is there any international student in the executive team in the SRC? And following on from that, how can you make sure that their voices have been explicitly heard?
No, and that is a massive issue. Last year, there was a member of the board that was an international student, and partway through the year, she sent an email to the rest of the board basically saying, look guys, I've really enjoyed the work I've done on the SRC, I'm really proud of it, but as an international student, I am paying exorbitant fees and I'm spending all my time on SRC and not being paid a dime for it. I need to go and seek paid work. And that's not something unique to international students. Last year, we had multiple different board members step down because it is all completely volunteer. Every single person here has not seen a single dime from any SRC work that we've done. And that is, in some ways, actually a major issue. Like, for example, not being able to spend as much time on it. And also creating environments where the only students that can be on the board are people that can afford to spend time volunteering. So that inherently creates a system where the people that you have on the board are not the most needy in society, and you kind of need people. It's kind of hard to represent people when the foundational requirement of it is that you have the means to get by regardless of whether you're paid or not. And I think that creates a lot of issues, and it's something that I've been in talks with the university regarding for a long time, and in typical university fashion, they keep saying that they need to wait for XYZ organisation to drop a report on it. And then I assume that when that group drops a report on it, they'll say they need to review the report and then they need to report on the report. So I don't know if it will ever happen, but it's something that I'm fighting for and the rest of all fighting for.
Cool, very good. Well, that'll wrap up the formal components of today's Q&A. Good round of applause for all our SRC board members. For the next half an hour or so, we'll still be here. So if you have any questions that you want to either direct to the SRC board members, come and talk to them. I know we've got a question in here specifically about Revitalise, so we've got 3 Vitalisees here that you can speak to. Otherwise, how can students otherwise contact the SRC just really quickly if they have any other issues?
Do you have an email?
Email?
We've got the Instagram page, just send us a DM, anything, and it will be discussed at a board meeting, and we'll be very happy to hear from the student body. Please contact us, please.
And also, I will also just say that when you sign up to be an SRC member, I'm sure everyone kind of feels the same way. When you sign up to be an SRC member, you kind of are almost signing away your right to not be harassed by strangers on campus. Like, everyone is free to come and talk to me on campus about anything that's annoying them about the university. As long as you do it respectfully, obviously. I feel like that's a very big disclaimer. But just find us in the wild as well if you can't talk to us today.
Cool, very good.
Should we pass the mic back?
Yeah, we'll sort that out, yeah. Food's over there by Lily. She will just wave. So single file line, nice and respectfully.
I just want to say before you get up, thank you guys so much for coming. Because you have registered and checked into the event, you'll get sent an email just with a feedback form. It takes literally 2 minutes. If you could fill that one out, just give us any feedback of how the event went, or if you guys enjoyed it, or if there's anything you would approve on if we do it next time, that would be great. But yes, feel free to look here.
Can we also just give a massive round of applause to the organisers?